Hey, hope you're doing great. You're gonna be doing better after this video because I got a lot of really good information for you, a lot of cool tips that I'm excited to share with you for advanced techniques and tips to break through muscle building and strength plateaus. These are training tips and techniques that we're gonna get into in just a minute, but first I want you to be aware that I think it's a good idea that you grab a pen and paper so that you can feel free to pause the video at any time and record the information and the tips that are necessary to apply to your training routines to break through your next plateau. But before we get into these exact tips, let's talk about plateaus really quick so that the information that you need to understand is set beforehand. First of all, plateaus are often a sign of overtraining, okay? If you think that you're in a position where you might be in an overtraining mode, you need to immediately identify that, okay? Stop your routine, take an entire week off from the gym before you begin implementing these techniques, because if you begin implementing these techniques when you're in overtraining mode, you're going to hurt your results. You're going to do the exact opposite of what these techniques are supposed to do. So make sure that you evaluate whether or not you're in overtraining mode first before you jump into this stuff. Secondly, okay, muscle building plateaus and strength plateaus are often a sign of nutritional deficiency, excess cortisol release from stress, okay, lack of sleep. Make sure that you're identifying these factors first and ruling them out as a possible thing that's responsible for your plateau. So evaluate your sleep, nutrition, your stress levels, and whether or not you're in overtraining mode first. If all that's in order, if your house is in order with all that stuff, it's time to dive into the really cool stuff that I got to share with you today, and we'll get right into it. Okay, assuming that our plateau is because our bodies have adapted to our current training regimen and not because of the previous factors that I already talked about, which you have already evaluated for yourself and determined that it's not because of any of those things I've gone over, it's time to implement any of the weapons that I'm about to go over with you. These training weapons are to be used sparingly throughout the year. By sparingly, I mean every 8 to 12 weeks, you can begin implementing one of these weapons just for a couple weeks of the year. You can't go over that because they're extremely taxing on our system, okay? They're extremely taxing on all aspects of our system, from the central nervous system to the endocrine system. They're very taxing on us in the fact that they promote extreme intensity, which is awesome, but after that, it's very wearing, especially if you do it more than a couple weeks in a row. So that being said, I think you get the point. I think it's time to dive into these guys and go over them in detail and show you how they're gonna help you burst through your strength and muscle building plateau. But first of all, it's important to note that they should be done as the last exercise for a particular and targeted muscle group, meaning that you don't apply these at the start of your workout or the middle. It's usually always the last exercise. Okay, I'm excited to share some cool stuff with you. Let's get you going.
Okay, the first technique we're going to go over is called drop sets. Now, drop sets is a very common yet very powerful and effective technique to burst through muscle building plateaus. A drop set is done by training to failure, okay, at a certain weight, then quickly dropping the weight about 20%, then training to failure again for a total of 3 drops. What this does is it creates an anabolic release of our muscle building hormones, engorges the muscle with blood flow, and fully fatigues all of the muscle fibers of a particular target muscle group that we need to in order to shock our body into growth. The next advanced technique I'm going to go over with you is called rest pause. Basically, the rest pause technique allows us to lift heavy weights for high reps to spark new muscle growth. There's no other technique equal to this than rest pause. It's similar to drop sets in that there's only one exercise being used, but the difference is the weight never drops. Keeping heavy weight with short rest periods can shock the body into growth and strength gains. The idea is to do one exercise of 6 to 8 reps, then rest for approximately 20 seconds, then use the exact same weight again to complete the next set. Do this a total of 3 times. The next plateau busting technique we're going to talk about is forced reps. Forced reps is great for fully tearing apart and obliterating our muscle fibers in a huge way. Forced reps are a great way to break through strength plateaus in particular, yet they're another valuable weapon to shock your muscles into growth. The way that you implement forced reps into your routine is you train 2 reps past failure, which seems to be the sweet spot. 1 set is all that's needed. Moving on to negatives. Negatives is another great method that absolutely obliterates your muscle fibers and can spark new growth and new strength gains. However, you have to be careful because negatives often causes extreme soreness for many days afterwards and needs to be used cautiously and sparingly. To do negatives, we need to use 5 to 20% higher than your 1 rep max for 6 reps, a total of 3 sets and 3 to 6 seconds a rep. Make sure that you're fighting the weight on the way down, the eccentric movement. That is how a negative is done properly. Moving on to giant sets. Giant sets is a great weapon against any muscle building or strength plateau because they allow you to create more muscle damage in less time. They allow you to get and maintain an unbelievable pump by engorging the muscle with blood. Giant sets increase the intensity of any workout. Also, when you increase the load of a workout while decreasing the time, this creates a very optimal hormonal response, meaning that our bodies release more testosterone, IGF-1, and GH. The way giant sets work is this. Giant sets, you take 3 or more exercises of the same muscle group and you hammer them out in the 8 to 12 rep range without rest. You move from one exercise to the next and so on. You do this for 2 to 3 sets maximum.
Well, did you enjoy that? I hope you did, because those are 5 strategies and those are the 5 methods that I've used throughout the years to burst through any muscle building and strength plateaus that I've encountered and that you will encounter, undoubtedly so. Just make sure that you use them intelligently and sparingly throughout your muscle building career, and they will move you closer towards your ultimate desired physique. I hope that you enjoyed that. If there's any other method that I would recommend that you learn about, it would be called something that has gained crazy amount of popularity in the last few months. It's called NOS, okay, which stands for a neurological overload set. And that's not something I can talk about. It's not a term that, that I own or anything like that, because it's patented by somebody else that is a good friend of mine, one of the best professional bodybuilders in the world, Ben Pakulski, who teaches this strategy to his natural training clients that are drug-free to burst them through muscle building plateaus. And he's also used this strategy himself to propel him to be one of the best bodybuilders in the world. I'll try to throw a link below that you could read about that a little bit more in depth if you'd like. I love that technique myself, but it's not something I should be teaching because that's actually his strategy that he uses and is patented by him. But other than that, I think that I've given you some awesome weapons that you can use in the months and years to come to take you closer towards your ultimate desired physique. I hope you enjoyed that, I really do, and we'll be in touch soon.